This is StewardShift, a show that gives you the tools you need to get the most of your best resources. Your money, your mind, your body, your time.
Welcome back to the StewardShift Show. I'm your host, Troy Levy, and today we're here to discuss 3 words that we've all heard before. Those 3 words are save your money. You've heard it. Probably when you were younger, someone who was probably a lot older than you and definitely a lot wiser than you, they said these 3 words to you. But oftentimes in our culture, people will say things but not really understand or teach the value behind it or the philosophy behind it. And today we're going to talk a little bit of philosophy, but I'm going to give you some real life tools that will help you to save in ways that are appropriate for just about everybody. So just a couple of things about saving. One of my favorite definitions or philosophies about saving before we get to these 3 ways of saving is that saving helps us to develop the discipline that we need in order to buy the things that we want without going into debt to get them. If you know me, if you've been following me for a little while, you know that I hate debt. I don't like it. I don't want it as part of my life, and I don't want it as part of your life. And so saving is part of my philosophy that helps to guard against debt. But another point about saving is that it prepares us for the inevitable. And so we're talking about 3 ways or 3 points of saving. And along all 3 of those points, there are some inevitabilities that will come into our life that saving will help to guard against those things. So here they are. There are 3 types of saving, 3 of them. The first type, and it's very, very simple, short-term saving. The second type of saving is mid-term saving. And of course, you guessed it, the third type of saving is long-term saving. So I want you to just kind of imagine yourself on a journey. You're going to a far away country, and along the way, there are some things that you have to do on that journey that are short-term, some things you have to do that are mid-term, as well as some things that you need to do long-term. Now, look at life, your life and my life as a journey, right? There are some things that we definitely need to be done within the next couple of weeks. There are some things that we need to be done within the next year or so. And there are some things that we need to be done in order to be prepared for our lives long term. So that's how I look at saving. So let's jump right into it. Short term. We're going to start with short term. Short term saving, aka emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, you need to build one right now. I'm talking about no question. 100% of people, you need an emergency fund. Why do you need one? Well, here's what happens. The inevitability of an emergency happening to you is almost 100%, right? Of course, nothing is 100% in our lives, but as close as you can get to 100%, we're at 99.9% probability that an emergency will happen to you and to me. And we all know what happens when life's emergencies come up if we're not prepared for them. What happens? You already know it and I know it. When emergencies come up and we're not prepared for them, we go for the easiest and the quickest thing that we could ever find. And of course, that's debt. When we're not prepared for the emergency that I'm telling you right now, you're going to have an emergency at some point in time. But when you're not prepared for it, you go to the easiest and the quickest thing. And that's a credit card. That's a loan. God forbid, payday loan or something crazy like out of this world. You need to be prepared for any and all emergencies that come up. And you don't want an emergency to wipe you out when it does come. You don't want to be caught desperate when an emergency does come up in your life. If you've been following me for a little while, you know one of my favorite sayings is desperation leads to dumb decisions. And that's 100% of the time. So if you're caught desperate in an emergency, you're going to make a dumb decision. I'm telling you right now. But if you're prepared for an emergency, you're a lot less likely to make a dumb decision and you're a lot more likely to make some wise decisions. Now, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. It doesn't matter how well prepared or not. Emergencies are going to come up, but how you navigate through that emergency, how you get to the other side of that emergency is going to be based on how well you've been prepared for it. So you got to be prepared, and that emergency fund is going to help you get through to the next level. So that's short term. That's short term. We don't know when it's going to come up. You can't plan for when it's going to come, but you know it's going to come. So you can plan appropriately for the inevitability of the emergency. So that's short term. You got to be prepared for that. That's the first kind of saving. The second type of saving is what I like to call midterm saving. Some people call this a sinking fund. Other people call this a save to pay fund. It's also called a replacement fund. I just like to call it very, very simply a stash, right? But what this is these aren't quite emergencies, and it's also not a long-term kind of saving plan. This kind of saving is for those things that you know are gonna come up. They're not emergencies, but you know you got to start planning for replacement of certain items. So, for instance, there are some things that you're just going to need to replace that might get old or might be out of date or something like that. So, for instance, a car. Hey, if you're like me, I like to ride my cars until the wheels fall off. That's just me. But other people buy their cars periodically every 3 years, every 5 years, every 10 years, or whatever it might be. I don't care what it is. What I'm trying to tell you is that you need to develop a midterm plan, a midterm savings plan to replace those kinds of items. So if you know that your car might be on the last leg, well, way before it even gets to the last leg, you know that at some point, once you purchase a car, let's say you purchased a car yesterday, you know that eventually that car is going to be obsolete or it's going to go out of commission or you're just not going to be able to drive it anymore. So as soon as you buy a car, the very next day, you need to get yourself on a midterm plan to replace that same car. But Troy, I just bought the car yesterday. Like, you're going way too hard. Yeah, I know that. But you know that you're going to have to replace it at some point. So you might as well start today to replace that vehicle. The last thing that you want is to be caught off guard with your car on the last leg, or you know that you need to replace it like within the next 6 months to a year or so, and you haven't even started saving for that replacement. So I'm advocating that as soon as you get a car, that you start saving for the replacement for that car. And if you don't, you know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to start borrowing because you're caught off guard. You're going to purchase the car from the car dealership at the finance office. And both you and I know that that's probably not a good idea. But when you start replacing your car or your phone or your camera or your laptop or your tablet or whatever it might be, any kind of expensive item is going to have to be replaced at some point. And I'm advocating that you start right now instead of being caught off guard when that time comes. Start now. So that's midterm saving. That's what I like to call midterm saving. Other people have other kinds of names for it, and that's fine. But the third kind of saving that everybody needs to do, let me just quickly recap. You have short-term saving, which is an emergency fund. You have midterm saving, which is a replacement fund or sinking fund or whatever you might want to call it. But the third kind is the long-term fund, and that's what I call investing. Investing, very, very simple term. Now, you might know or maybe not know about the ins and outs of investing. That's not the point of this episode right here, right now. And that's okay. You don't need to know all the ins and outs. What I am trying to tell you right now is that investing is your best long-term financial plan. And by investing, I don't mean just putting it in a savings account, because savings accounts compared to the market do not offer you the best rate of return or the best return on investment. So what I'm advocating is that you need to be investing in the stock market. This is one of the best places to invest your money. Invest in the stock market, which is a great long-term plan. If you have retirement accounts, that's going to be a great long-term plan. If you have mutual funds, great long-term plan. Anything where you're putting it in and leaving it. Now, I know that some people have this approach to investing that you put it in and take it out based on how the market is going. Don't do that. You need to invest and hold, buy and hold. This is just a great strategy that all of the great investors have always done. Warren Buffett and others. Buy and hold. Because investing is based on the long-term plan of using time to build up that investment to where it needs to be. And when you don't have time on your side, or if you don't give yourself time for the investment to get higher and to build up, then that investment really isn't an investment. You're just trying to get quick money. That's what that's all about. And investing is not about quick money. Investing is a long-term plan. So if you're trying to get quick money, I can't help you. But if you're here to save, to get some long-term growth, then hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for it all. All right. So that's the stock market. You need to be investing in the stock market. And here's another great long-term savings plan. It might sound a bit weird, but philosophically, this is what investing is all about. Purchasing a home is a great long-term plan. Now, I'm not just talking about real estate investing or purchasing multi-properties or anything like that. Those are great too. What I'm saying also is that your primary residence is a great long-term savings plan. Savings plan? Yeah. Look, purchasing a home, even a primary investment, is like a savings account that you can actually live in. You're not going to be living at the bank. We know that, obviously, but this is a savings account that you live in. How does that work? Okay. So when you purchase a home, obviously you purchase with a down payment, and then you pay along the way for however long the term is, whether that's 15-year, 30-year, or whatever it might be. Now, here's my philosophy about purchasing a home as a savings plan. Every single month when you pay your mortgage, you're going to be paying, it's called PITI, P-I-T-I, but I'm not talking about the ITI, not the insurance, not the taxes, and not the interest. Those kinds of things aren't part of your savings plan. But when you pay on the principal, that's going to be part of your savings plan, because now as you're paying on the principal of your home, yes, even your primary residence, that's a savings account. You're building equity in that home. Now, I'm not one of those who advocates for cashing out on a refinance or anything like that. I'm just not one of those. I think that when you pay on a home, that you shouldn't cash out and that you should just leave it as is, because the long-term goal of paying on a mortgage is to own your own home free and clear without the possibility of anyone being able to take that away from you. In other words, a foreclosure. I don't want you to foreclose. I'm trying to eliminate that possibility. But when you purchase a home, you can always sell it. And when you sell it, of course, you're going to get back that equity from the principal that you were paying on that home the whole time. So as you build equity, as you pay on the principal of that home every single month, that's a long-term savings plan, savings account. That's a long-term plan. That's called investing. And investing long-term is one of the best things that you can ever do. All right. So that's short-term saving, that's midterm saving, and that's long-term saving. Every single person needs to be doing a combination of all three of those. Putting money or building up an emergency fund. You need to have a replacement fund or a stash to replace the items that you know need to be replaced. And you need to be investing long-term in the stock market as well as in the real estate market. So here's a couple of shifts that you can make as you seek to make savings a part of your normal everyday life plan. I need you to open 2 separate savings accounts if you don't have them already. If you have them, great. But here's some stipulations with that. I need you to open savings accounts or have them that are not attached to your checking account. So you don't want this to be any kind of overdraft protection or anything like that. You don't want to accidentally dip into this. And those 2 savings accounts are going to be designated, number 1, for your emergency fund. And then number 2, you're going to use the other one for your replacement fund or for your stash. Now, if you have to put that in a totally different account or a totally different bank or something like that, so that it doesn't accidentally get dipped into when you're spending money, your everyday money from your checking account. Go ahead, feel free to do that, as long as you have the ability to not touch these until it's absolutely necessary. Now, I need you to have 2 separate savings accounts that go along with that reality. So that's a small shift. But here's a super shift that everyone needs to be doing. In one of those separate savings accounts, you need to be building up a fully funded emergency fund in order to avoid debt. Now, during the pandemic, I know that all of us couldn't have ever imagined that any of us would have lost our jobs like that, or that certain sectors of society would have dipped down. We would have never imagined. But guess what? Life happens, and it happens to all of us. And we never know what's going to happen or who is going to happen to next. Now, I'm not trying to cry wolf, and I'm not trying to be an alarmist at all, but we just never know what might happen and who it might happen to. So building a fully funded emergency fund is going to be the best thing for any of us to avoid a life that's just going down the wrong path. Now, fully funded means that you're saving 3 to 6 months of essential expenses so that you can pay for your place to live, utilities on that place, have transportation, as well as food to eat, as well as some other essential things. So we're not talking about going out to eat or restaurants or anything like that. You're going to slim your budget down, and whatever that slim down budget looks like, that's what your essential expenses are. Now, I need you to build that up so that when life's storms do come, that you'll be well prepared. All right, so those are the 3 kinds of saving that we're discussing here in this episode. I know that this is going to be super helpful for you. Pass the word along, hit subscribe, make sure you like this video or this audio, and we'll see you in the next one.